get a copy, and also for folks wanting to get a copy of the presentation is available on our event page, and I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat box now, so that if you want to go ahead and click on that link, you'll be able to access the presentation or get it back from any time. So with that, I would next like to invite Director Nai Shwaya, who will be providing us with welcoming remarks. Director Shwaya, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this meeting. My name is Nai Xue. I am one of the 7 directors serving on Valley Water's board. I represent District 5. I'm also the chair of the board's policy and planning committee. As most of you know, that Valley Water is Santa Clara County's primary water wholesaler. And our mission is to provide sufficient, safe, and clean water to sustain the region's economic vitality and quality of life. Also that you are aware, Santa Clara County and the entire California is in an extreme drought. In fact, we are experiencing the driest water year since 1977. We want to thank the businesses and residents in Santa Clara County for responding positively to Valley Water's call of conserving 15% of water usage. The recent October rain also helped. However, it will take several more storms like the October one to navigate our way through this drought emergency. So I would like to encourage everyone, please continue the water conservation efforts. Every drop of water that you saved will not be lost and will be used either for next year or in the future. On an ongoing basis, to fulfill our mission, Valley Water continues to evaluate and update the way we deliver water, whether it's a drought or wet condition. So this ongoing evaluation includes our surface water program, which was established in 1974 to allow direct surface water deliveries to a limited number of properties. Valley Water is currently considering updates to the surface water program and the rules and regulations that governs it. And that's the purpose of today's meeting. You will hear from Valley Water staff about the program's background and the proposed update. We thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing your feedback about the proposed updates. Jose, I will turn the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Director Shwaya, for your comments. Next, I would like to invite Samina. Samina is our Associate Engineer in the Water Supply Operations Unit. She will be providing today's presentation on the surface water program. And remember, folks, that following this presentation, we will open it up to questions. And you can enter your question into the Q&A box. Thank you. Samina, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Jose. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, directors and community members. I'll just go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my presentation. Good afternoon. My name is Samina Sheikh. I'm an associate engineer with raw water operations here at Valley Water. I've been at Valley Water for about 15 years. And our team, along with raw water field operations, is responsible for operating the raw or untreated distribution facilities that include our reservoirs, our pipelines, that supply water to our drinking water treatment plants, to our creeks and ponds, and supply water to our surface water customers. So the purpose of today's meeting, as Director Shwaya mentioned, is to share with you all updates that are being considered to the Valley Water Surface Water Program, which is the program whereby Valley Water provides untreated water supply directly to customers from pipelines and creeks. And most importantly, we are seeking input from you, the stakeholders, today on the proposed changes prior to presenting an updated proposal to the Board of Directors for their consideration. So just to provide an overview of what I'll be presenting on today, I'll start by providing a history of Valley Water, the distribution system, and talk about the water use. I'll provide background on the untreated surface water program, what it is, and who it serves. Then I'll share with you the proposed changes to the program, the reasons for the potential updates, and also outlining the two-phased approach for the updates to the program. There will be time, as Jose mentioned, at the end of the presentation to receive your stakeholder input and feedback in the Q&A session, and I'll also be identifying the next steps and where we go from here. So this slide is a little complex, but it's a great slide. It provides a representation of our groundwater supply through the years compared with local population growth. The groundwater basins are Valley Water's largest water storage facility, with a capacity greater than all the Valley Water above ground reservoirs combined. So what we're looking at here, on the top of the graphic in the orange dashed line, you can see the land surface elevation in San Jose over time. The green line represents population growth, and the blue line shows the elevation of groundwater measured at one well in the valley. So the first inhabitants of the valley depended entirely on nature for their water, which was challenging because of the uncertainties with rainfall. Remember that the average rainfall in this semi-arid region is only about 14 inches a year. So beginning in the 1850s, gold seekers and others moved here seeking a better life. And in the early 1900s, which is where this graphic begins, farming flourished and wells were dug to tap into the underground supply to water crops and orchards, earning the valley floor the name Valley of Heart's Delight. But as a result, as you can see here, there was a severe decline in groundwater levels because of the growth in population and the increase in farming, and concerns over land subsidence led to the formation in 1929 of the Santa Clara Valley Conservation District, which is our predecessor. The district built 6 new dams in the 1930s, and through organized water management was able to replenish the groundwater basins by collecting rainfall runoff in the surface water reservoirs and making releases to percolate into the gravelly material and recharging the groundwater basins. However, as the population continued to increase and industry expanded, the groundwater levels continued to decline, and more reservoirs were built in the 1950s, including Anderson and Lexington Reservoir. But the water was still not enough, and in 1965, the first deliveries of imported water began with the via the South Bay Aqueduct as a part of the State Water Project. And it's incredible to think that much of the county's water supply was snow or rain and comes from hundreds of miles away. In 1974, around this time, it was around this time that the board adopted the rules and regulations for the service of surface water to reduce the groundwater pumping by providing instead surface water from pipelines and creeks to the large agricultural and commercial users, which further helped the basins recover. Additional imported water of federal supplies were through the San Felipe system were added in 1987. And over this period, land had subsided 13 feet in the North County and was effectively halted due to Valley Water's surface water and groundwater management activities. And you can see, looking at this graph, that the groundwater basins have been largely sustainable for the last 30 years or so with the effective organized water management of surface and groundwater supplies. And even though there are variations, conditions are typically more stable than they have been historically. This next map shows the complex water distribution system operated and managed by Valley Water. Valley Water's mission is to provide clean water, a healthy environment, and flood protection. And to that end, Valley Water operates 3 drinking water treatment plants, an advanced water purification center, pump stations, 10 reservoirs. We manage 90 miles of creeks, over 100 groundwater percolation ponds, and many miles of pipelines throughout the county. So looking at this image, the orange lines are the raw untreated water pipelines that can move local water or imported supplies through the county for drinking water, for groundwater recharge, or for making surface water deliveries to customers on the program. Just want to point out here, so if we're looking to the south, we have the San Felipe system bringing in federal supplies stored in San Luis Reservoir into the county. The Santa Clara conduit that serves the Half Road lateral pipeline customers. We also have the Cross Valley pipeline and the Almaden Valley pipeline. And to the north, we have the SBA, South Bay Aqueduct, that brings in state supplies, which is not owned by Valley Water. It's managed by the Department of Water Resources. Valley Water is the primary water wholesaler for the county, and we work closely with our partner retailers to serve the county's drinking water needs. And the green lines show the drinking water, treated water pipelines. Groundwater is a sole source of supply for South County. The next slide shows a breakdown of water consumption that Valley Water manages in the county. And the data we're looking at is for fiscal year 20, which is a period ending June 30th, 2020. So what we're looking at here, groundwater consumption, which is the groundwater pumped from the groundwater basins, was about 54% of water use during this period. Treated water delivered to retailers was about 45%. Recycled water, which is the total recycled water that Valley Water manages and purifies, was a small amount. And interestingly, surface water consumed by comparison makes up less than 1% of the county's total water use. And in terms of revenue, the program generates less than 0.6% of revenue, with groundwater and treated water making up the largest portions. So what is the program? To explain a little bit better, surface water is the term that we use to differentiate those supplies from groundwater supplies and from treated water. And the untreated surface water program is the delivery of interruptible, so it cannot be guaranteed, untreated surface water service from local reservoirs or imports into the county or from storage to customers directly from our raw water pipelines and creeks. The program was originally intended to reduce groundwater pumping by allowing customers to take local and imported sources rather than extracting water from our groundwater basins. Over time, homeowners also became added to the program that used the water for landscaping around their homes. The program is governed by the 1974 rules and regulations for the service of surface water, and all recipients must have an approved permit to divert surface water from Valley Water. The rules and regulations are available on our website at valleywater.org. In 2016, the board approved 8 principles to revise the rules to reflect the complexity of Valley Water operations, its role as a water wholesaler, and to provide updates that reflect our conservation and environmental goals. And it's under that guidance that we bring to you the proposals today. So just to run over, quickly go through some of the overarching principles that staff has been using to guide the proposal. The proposal seeks to better align with current board policies, CEO strategies, and direction. That includes no construction of new turnouts or expansions of service beyond what is currently in place so that the service doesn't negatively impact Valley Water operations or its ability to deliver water to the drinking water treatment plants or groundwater operations. Second, while we're doing what we can, we do seek the community's support towards water conservation goals. And despite some rains last month, we are still in a statewide drought emergency. And as you know, on June 9th, the board of directors called for a mandatory 15% reduction in water use compared to 2019, as local supply in reservoirs is low and imported supplies are limited. Thirdly, to update the program to improve administration and cost management practices. Also, to update the language to better reflect the interruptible nature of the service, since water supply is subject to shortage, fluctuations in flow, and outages and cannot be guaranteed. Wherever possible, to facilitate conversion or convert service to recycled water service as part of our future recycled water goals. And next, the program should aim, where possible, to avoid duplicative water service, where there is water retailer service available or an alternate source. Interestingly, Valley Water is providing raw water currently to properties in many cases where the customers also receive treated water from retailers. And since the supply cannot be guaranteed 24/7 and is interruptible, this may prove a challenge for fire suppression purposes. And Valley Water is working closely with local and county fire officials to discuss surface water use for fire safety as a separate effort outside of this proposal. And lastly, the proposal should aim to avoid impacts to Valley Water's environmental obligations, to maintain releases to streams and creeks to supply groundwater basins, and also support a healthy environment. This next slide is a map of an approximate location of our customers. We currently have 64 customers on the program, as shown by the pink dots, all over the county. And I'm using the term customers very loosely, since Valley Water is a wholesaler and not a retailer, although essentially we are providing water directly through this service to 64 permittees out of the county's nearly 20 million residents for whom we provide services. Most receive water from our raw water pipelines. However, there are some that divert water from creeks. And depending on where you are, you could be receiving water from a variety of sources. It can be local from our reservoirs. It can be imported sources from outside of the county. Most of our customers are located in the southern half of the county. So what are some of the types of uses served by the program? Water is continuing to be used for agriculture, which was the original intent of the program. The uses include businesses that grow a variety of seasonal crops, manage orchards for commercial sale, such as cherries and apples and plums, or to irrigate pasture for livestock. And we have about 25 permits on the program currently under this category. Municipal and industrial uses include large employers, such as golf courses, watering of common outdoor areas around multiple home development communities, water that's used at quarries for dust control, public parks, and open spaces. And we have about 19 permits under this category. Lastly, the program provides water to private homeowners and residences for the residential landscaping of their private homes and households, for their lawns, bushes, shrubs, trees, and home gardens. These are non-commercial entities, and we have about 20 permits on the program in this category. So if we look by the numbers, and starting with the graphic on the left, the majority of the customers on the program remain large agricultural customers and commercial businesses that use the service to provide public goods and services. However, 31% are private landscaping customers with relatively a small amount of usage for their home gardens and lawns. So domestic use at this time makes up about 1% of the overall water used on the program. The next few slides, I'd like to highlight some of the key reasons why we are proposing changes to the program and updates at this time. More and more, we are having to deal with the hydrologic variability and frequency of extended droughts. As you well know, Santa Clara is currently in an extreme drought. Water supplies across the state are threatened. Groundwater storage is decreasing, and we need to reduce consumption and recharge more when the supplies are available. And since the supply cannot be guaranteed, streamlining the number of customers on the program would help reduce the potential for negative operational and environmental impacts of surface water use. The image that you see here is of Anderson Reservoir, taken not too long ago. The reservoir is currently being seismically retrofitted. The proposed changes to the program, again, are to align with the board-approved guiding principles for the updates, which include avoiding duplicative water service when there is a water retailer service available, or an additional supply such as groundwater via a groundwater well. And as you'll see shortly, the customers that may be impacted by this initial proposal are nearly all receiving retailer service already for potable water use at their homes. The rules have remained unchanged in nearly 50 years and need updating to reflect current service requirements and to be revised in ways that support present and future Valley Water water supply management and operational goals. And when we're considering the future of the program, it's important to remember that surface water deliveries can impact the ability of Valley Water to manage water efficiently and effectively as a wholesaler, to supply drinking water treatment plants or groundwater recharge, especially when supplies are limited. This next slide illustrates how surface water is an interruptible source, and much of the aging infrastructure is subject to planned or unplanned outages and fluctuations in flow. So what we're looking at here in this table is the period between 2015 and 2021. And what I've summarized for you here are the planned and unplanned outages for these specific pipelines. The South Bay Aqueduct has had 7 planned outages that have lasted anywhere up to 9 months, and 9 unplanned events. The Almaden Valley Pipeline has had 2 major outages for planned maintenance. The Santa Clara Conduit, Half Road Lateral, and Cross Valley Pipeline, they've had 9 planned events and 5 unplanned events. And I want to highlight here that Valley Water has a robust asset management program of performing facility inspections and maintenance, but you can see through this slide how the interruptions to surface water supply to permittees can be significant while valves and pipes are being inspected and repaired or replaced. During the planned outages, customers are notified and advised to switch to their alternate sources of water, which could be retailer service or using the groundwater wells. And just lastly, this slide emphasizes that the customers should be mindful of the interruptible nature of the supply and that they may be better served by a more reliable source. And looking forward, the proposed changes to the program should help conserve supplies for water supply obligations. This includes drinking water supply to the drinking water treatment plants, for groundwater recharge in creeks and ponds, and providing environmental benefit through releases to creeks for fish and wildlife. And with Anderson Reservoir supply being unavailable for the next 10 years, as it is seismically retrofitted, supplies for the surface water program may be further constrained. Also looking forward to the future, Valley Water is looking to have purified water as a future source to increase water supply reliability that may in the future be used instead of untreated surface water as a more drought resilient source. So what are the changes being proposed to the program? In a nutshell, a 2-phased approach is being proposed. Phase 1 would be to reduce the size of the program by the end of 2023 by reducing the number of permittees. And phase 2 would be the development of revisions to the 1974 surface water rules for the future of the program. And that may require more time to finalize. So let's look at each phase in more detail. Phase 1 proposes to remove all domestic landscape use customers off the service by the end of 2023. This will impact a little less than 1/3 of current customers where retailer service is available or groundwater wells are available to supply water. Who does this impact? This will impact about 20 or so customers that are currently using Valley Water raw water service solely to water their lawns and gardens outside their private residences and single-family dwellings. Most of these customers are located in District 1. This phase, in addition, also proposes to limit usage for private landscaping use around residences and homes for business owners also. And although the customers that are part of domestic use on the program, although the customers are confirmed to have one or more additional sources of water available to them, in fact, most of them are already receiving potable use water from retailers. Whether it's retailer service or a groundwater well that might be located on their property, Valley Water proposes to coordinate with the individual customer to confirm the availability of an alternative source or sources of water that can be used to meet their landscaping needs as part of the implementation of this phase. Secondly, we believe that this solves the inequity of neighbors that have an established alternate source of water, continuing to receive the program benefit of relatively inexpensive Valley water supply solely for private landscaping and not to provide any public goods or benefits for the community as whole. And this speaks to Valley Water's, function of managing the county's water supply for the benefit of the whole county as a primary water wholesaler and as manager of the groundwater basins. And by providing this service solely for watering land and landscaping purposes at a single family dwelling, it's inconsistent with providing an equitable service that benefits the entire community. The program was originally intended for agriculture and industry, and essentially there is inequity in Valley Water providing a retailer style service to a select few small users where a neighbor may not be enjoying the same program benefit. Thirdly, this program phase preserves the interruptible service to current agricultural and municipal and industrial customers that are providing goods and services to the community. In many cases, these large-scale entities are providing numerous community benefits, such as employment, food production for public consumption, economic development for the region through their goods and services, open public spaces for the community to enjoy, and other recreational and environmental benefits. By switching to a more reliable and equitable source of water, landscaping customers may be incentivized to conserve more, and this will help support outdoor water conservation, as well as conserve supplies in the groundwater basins for the benefit of all users of the basins. In addition, any domestic landscape use customers under this phase that use surface water as an alternative supply for fire safety will be contacted and will be guided by a separate Valley Water effort outside of this proposal. For phase 2, the revisions to the surface water rules, as I mentioned, the rules are the overarching document. They set the parameters for providing the service, and they have not been updated since they were first adopted by the Board of Directors in 1974. Valley Water operations have changed over the past 50 years as more drinking water treatment plants have come online with the increased population and urbanization, the changing environmental and conservation goals, and diversions from the system do have an impact on Valley Water's ability to manage water effectively, especially when supplies are limited. So we're looking at this opportunity as in phase 2 to revise the rules to reflect the complexity of Valley Water operations to meet the water supply needs of the county for the future of the program. The development of the revisions it may take some time, and in this slide here, I'm highlighting a few of the updates that are being proposed at this time as part of the phase 2 revisions to the rules. We're proposing to update the language to include a metering requirement and associated fees and any other applicable fees for the delivery of the service to improve cost management and administration of the surface water deliveries. Secondly, we are proposing to include that the service will be specified to exclude domestic residential landscaping use to continue the intent from phase 1 to operate a more streamlined program that limits delivery of untreated surface water through the vast distribution network to customers solely for private landscaping use. We'd also like to propose incorporating into the rules that customers may be required to install backflow preventers at their service connections to prevent any cross-contamination. Specifically, customers that may be relying on retailer connection for their potable needs, there is a potential health risk from cross-connection of those supplies, and this update would help to address that. Another proposed revision would be to include language reminding creek diverters that although Valley Water shall not interfere with their riparian rights to natural flow in the creek, it would serve as a gentle reminder of their obligations to comply with all local and state requirements for operating any in-stream diversions, and Valley Water may require evidence of such for surface water deliveries. And lastly, to emphasize the interruptible nature of the service and that the supply may be subject to shortages fluctuations in flow and outages, we are proposing to incorporate a process such as an annual acknowledgement form that customers on the program would be able to sign annually, acknowledging that the untreated surface water service cannot be guaranteed. And with that, I'm nearing the end of my presentation here. And before I hand it back to Jose to open up for the Q&A session, so that we may hear from you and get your feedback on the proposed changes and any of the information that was presented to you here today, I'd like to provide you with a quick update as to the next steps following this meeting. So this is the second of the 2 public meetings that we've had this week on the surface water program and the updates, proposed updates. Following these public meetings, once we have received your input as stakeholders of the program, we do plan to return to the Valley Water Board in the winter of 2022, so most likely early next year, with an updated proposal for the board's consideration. And once approved, this will be followed by the implementation of phase 1 of the proposal, while staff will continue to work to develop, to revise the surface water rules as part of phase 2. And that may involve further public outreach nearer the time. And this last slide here, I've provided some contact information for you of staff that you may feel free to reach out to with any questions related to the surface water program. We have Greg Williams, our Deputy Operating Officer for the Rural Water Division, Bassam Kassab, Water Supply Operations Manager, and Jason Orajo, the Water Resources Supervisor. And with that, I will hand it back to Jose for any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Samina, for that great presentation. Now to our audience listening to us, you can submit your questions into the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand and staff will gladly recognize you or mute you so that you can answer your, we can answer your question. And to folks listening to us on Facebook Live, you can enter your question into the chat box and staff will get that question over to us for us to respond to. So we are opening up the meeting now to questions from our audience. So please do comment. As we wait for folks to ask questions, I'm going to ask Aaron Baker, our Chief Operating Officer for Water Utility, to share with us what it is that Valley Water does to evaluate its water supply needs in light of in light of the surface water program and the proposed changes. So with that, I like to invite Aaron Baker to share with us. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you all for coming. And we really appreciate your input. And of course, if you really will put that slide back up. If you have any other questions, make sure you hit us up and we can figure those things out. So, we look at our water supply all the time, but actually one of the things I'd like to talk about is when these rules and regulations were adopted by the board, it was almost 50 years ago. Most of it was for agricultural diversions off of canals and pipelines and out of managed creeks. Most of those canals and creek diversions aren't around anymore, and a lot has changed since then. And although we still have agricultural use, much of the recent use of the waters for non-agricultural purposes, we have known that we've needed to update these rules and regulations for quite a while to address those changes from the last 50 years. This surface water program is being updated to ensure that we have the highest and best beneficial use of this limited, precious resource for now and into the future. As we are in this current drought, we don't know when it's going to end. We do know another one is going to be there. And we do know that water is precious. We do know that in the future, we need to make sure that we're using this water in the best available possible way. Now, I know that we are proposing that some of you, that you use another source of water to water your lawn at your house. While we understand that this other source may be slightly more expensive, we ask that you recognize that you've been lucky to be part of a program that only 20 people out of the 2 million residents of Santa Clara County have access to. We're unable to continue this service that only benefits approximately 20 individual residential households. Again, We need to ensure that the highest and best beneficial use of this limited precious resource is available for now and into the future. And we greatly appreciate all your input and working with us as we begin to update these rules and regulations that haven't been updated for almost 50 years. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Aaron, for those comments. Really appreciate that. And if any of our attendees would like to submit a question or raise their hand, staff is available to answer your question. While we wait to get questions from the audience, I have a question. What if I am an agriculture user and a domestic user or a landscape user? What happens in that situation?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start with that. So that's a great question. And so as part of phase 1, what we are proposing is to limit all residential landscape use. So for a business owner or agricultural, a farmer or a commercial business, if they are also using the raw water service around any residence or home, around their home properties, we're asking that water use be limited as part of this phase.
Great, thank you for that.
Maybe I'll chime in just a little bit. So we do know that there are, and you may have a question. It's right now maybe we're using crop factors, or maybe we're using a couple of other things for your type of thing. So what we'll be able to do is make sure that we're metering your right source, working with you so that we can sunset your domestic watering the lawn use. But phase 1 of the program is definitely to keep the agricultural and commercial uses going. And then as we talked about with phase 2, we may need to put in a backflow preventer or some other things in the future. But for right now, phase 1, what we'd be looking to, or what we'd be working with you, those individual 20 people on, is if you had a joint account or with other accounts, is to make sure we could work with you to sunset that domestic use, but keep the ag use up and running and properly meter and continue that service.
Thank you for the comments. Looks like we have a hand raised by Janet. So Janet, I'm gonna go ahead and let's see here, unmute you. So Janet, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask your question.
All right, thank you very much. So is this permanent? I mean, let's say that we start having rain, a lot of it in this next year and the year after. Is it going to this a permanent decision? I have other questions, so that's one of them. Can I get an answer, or shall I ask all of them right now?
Let's go ahead and get an answer to this question, and then we'll move on to your next question.
So yes, we are looking at sunsetting the domestic residential landscape irrigation uses as a permanent moving forward. The access that only 20 people have access to that particular out of being stewards for water for the 2 million residents of Santa Clara County. We're looking at sunsetting that domestic use only.
All right. My next comment, I guess, would be back when this became available, my father signed up for it, and there were other neighbors, and he had a meeting asking them if they would all like to join in and be a part of this and to pay for the cost to have the pipeline brought down to the homes and everybody share. And no one else was interested. So my father said, well, I'll just do it myself. People were given a choice. It's kind of like, say it's not fair to the others. I don't know. I find that a little bit off-putting. So a comment. Another thing that I'm feeling very frustrated about is that today in less than an hour, there's going to be a meeting with the County Planning Commission, and they are talking about putting an overlay over all of Coyote Valley for a climate control overlay. And so part of that is to keep things environmentally green and good. And so I feel like you're kind of defeating one of the things that could be happening from what they're wanting. You can't build out there now, and now we're not going to be able to get water for some of these other uses. And I just feel like we're being squeezed, and I don't like it. And I guess there's not a question, but I'm just venting because I'm unhappy. Would you like to comment on my vent?
No, and we we sympathize, and I can definitely hear and understand where you're going, and I think the other part that we would generally ask or have you understand is that we have landscape rebate programs to maybe convert some of the square footage of lawn or other areas to what we would open spaces that would use less water or need less water. But we do understand that, your frustration and I guess we'll ask your patience.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Janet, for your comments and in your question. Do we have any more comments from the audience? Anything from Facebook? While we wait to get quite any more questions, Samina, you had mentioned that this is going to be going to the board in 2022. Do we have a sense of when? And then also, will people have the opportunity to further comment at that meeting?
Sure. Yes. So at this time, we are aiming for early next year. I don't have a specific date at this time. We would like to, understand all and get and receive all of the input that we're getting at this time from our stakeholders, incorporate that into the final proposal, and so that may take us into next year. So I don't have a specific date, but that of course will be advertised, and that will be a public meeting. So if folks would like to see our final proposal, they are welcome to join at that point. And for the phase two revisions, we will keep the stakeholders informed as that develops. As I mentioned in my presentation, that we do feel that will take a little bit more time to revise the rules for the future of the program, and we will ensure to the best of our ability that we are keeping all the stakeholders informed as that process develops.
Samina, we can commit to, of course, we're going to send letters to all of all of our surface water customers when that board meeting is scheduled, correct?
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that response. Another question while we wait to see if we get any more comments is this program, is this unique to Santa Clara County? Do we know of other counties that maybe do this? I mean, it's been around since 1974. So I'm just wondering if there's other communities out there that do this.
Well, that's a great question. I cannot speak outside of the county. This program, as I included in my initial slides, was to address a very specific concern for Santa Clara County due to the over-extraction of the groundwater basin, then to assist with the to effectively halt that decline and to help the groundwater basins recover. This program was initiated in order to assist with that effort. And so this was to address a specific concern for the county. Whether it's happening outside the county, I don't know if anyone else on the panel might be able to speak to that, but certainly it's a program unique to where we are for a specific reason.
Sorry, Aaron. Go ahead,
Aaron.
I'll chime in a little bit. So San Benito County and other counties do have some surface water programs, especially down in the, in the Central Valley or in other places. There's a decent amount of surface water programs. Primarily, they're agricultural. It's not very common for surface water to be used for domestic uses. It can be. It's just depending on the pricing and some other things. But typically, most of your surface water programs are ag oriented or in that particular realm of things. That's not to say that there are programs that also do domestic uses, but typically those programs are agricultural uses.
Great. Thank you both for your comments. We received a question here from None. The question reads, what is the best way to provide feedback or comments on the proposal? in a written letter or email?
So, Samina, I was going to suggest an email to any one of the people we have, or we could also do a written letter, sent to various places. But I believe, thank you for putting that back up, an email to, oh, I guess we lost it again, but an email to any one of those there. And then if you would like to start a conversation, of course, we encourage you to call any one of those. Well, maybe start with Greg. Start with the boss. Go ahead and write your email to Greg and give him a call, and we can kind of continue from there. We can also, if you're worried, or if you want when the official if while working with staff things we are unable to satisfy all your concerns, of course, we'll let you know when the board meeting is. You could also write a letter regarding that to the board, and you can also be aware at the board meeting to also voice your input. So please, an email to Greg, and then or a phone call, then a letter later on when the board item does come up, or coming to the board meeting.
Great, thank you. Sounds like we have folks have a couple opportunities there to voice their opinion on the proposed changes to the program. I don't see any more questions coming through, and so with that, I actually would like to invite Director Shuea to come back and give us some closing comments. She will share some information regarding our rebate program. I know, Aaron, you had alluded to it earlier in your comments, and Director Shreya will share a little bit more information about that. So, Director Shreya, the floor is all yours again.
Okay, thank you, Jose. And thank you, Samina, for this presentation, and thank all the staff that's working behind the scene and putting together this public meeting. I'd like to take this opportunity to reiterate my earlier message to all of you that please continue doing the good job that you've already doing to conserve water. Water is a precious resource. It's not a commodity. We cannot make water. And water conservation needs to be a way of life in Santa Clara County, whether it's drought condition or wet condition. It's just the right thing to do. Valley Water offers many incentive programs and tips to help people to do a good job conserving water. We have a website called watersavings.org. Please check out that website and find out more information and see how those incentive programs and tips can help you. So with that, again, thank you for attending today's meeting. We will take your input seriously, and also additional questions as Mr. Baker mentioned earlier, please send them in to Mr. Williams, and we'll go from there. So thank you. Have a good afternoon.